in speech. So what do? Keep on sinning so God can keep on forgiving? I should hope not. Listen to this. If we've left the country where sin is sovereign, how can we still live in our old house there? That's a really interesting way to put it. In other words, if we moved out of where we were, we can't live in that same old house. In other words. See, he's saying by being baptized in Jesus, you have already identified with the death that's already taken place and a resurrection that's already taken place. And you're now a new person. You're now walking in newness of life. Let's go to another verse and look at how he says it. Here we're in Romans. Look in chapter 12. I just want you to notice that he keeps appealing to the idea that your identity has changed. And what changed it was nothing more than faith in Jesus. Romans chapter 12, verse 1 says in the King James translation, I beseech you therefore, brethren, by the mercies of God, that ye present your bodies as a living sacrifice, wholly acceptable unto God, which is your reasonable service. In other words, think of your body as a sacrifice, but a living sacrifice. I like how the Message says this a little better. The Message translation says it this way. So here's what I want you to do, God helping you. Take your everyday, ordinary life, your sleeping, eating, going to work, and walking around life, and place it before God as an offering. Embracing what God does for you is the best thing you can do for Him. I like that. And notice again that he is saying pretty much what he said in Galatians 2:20, when he said, the life that I live in the flesh. Here it spells it all out, what it means, the life that I live in the flesh. Your ordinary life, your sleeping, eating, going to work life, walking around life, place it before God as an offering. In other words, think of it in terms of it's something that you submit to God, in other words. And he describes it this way, embracing what God does for you is the best thing you can do for Him. I think that's good. That's the attitude, a good mindset to have about it. Now let's go back to the King James and notice what he says in verse 2. I read that just to get to verse 2. Verse 2 says this, and be not conformed to this world, but be transformed, how? By the renewing of your mind, that you may prove what is that good and acceptable and perfect will of God. Now he says we are transformed by renewing of the mind. Your mind is this right here. Well, that's my hair, but inside. Your mind is where you do all your thinking. Right? By renewing of the mind, by changing the way you think. Well, what do you mean, change the way you think? Well, especially in reference to who it is that you are. See, he's talking about your ordinary, everyday life as an offering before God. And he says, don't be conformed to the world, but be transformed by the renewing of the mind, by the changing of the mind. Let me read this to you from yet another translation. I don't have this on the screen. I'm sorry for that. This is a translation by a man named Kenneth Lee. Kenneth Lee was a Greek scholar. Remember I said the New Testament was written in Greek? This is a man who is an expert in the Greek language. And he endeavors in his translation to bring out various subtle shades of meaning that might be lost in the English translation. And so here's how Kenneth Lee translates this verse. He says, stop assuming an outward expression that does not come from within you and is not representative of what you are in your inner being, but is patterned after this age. But change your outward expression to one that comes from within and is representative of your inner being by the renewing of the mind. In other words, by changing the way we think about who it is that we are in our inner being. Now, how do we find that out, who we are in our inner being? Well, there's no place to find, there's no way to if you look in the physical mirror, you're going to see your outer being. But you see, we want our outer life to reflect who we are in our inner being. The only way to find out the details about that is to look and see what he says about it here. And I have one more to read, and then I want to tell you a little story, and it's in Ephesians chapter 4. In Ephesians chapter 4, and I think I want verse 22. Again and again, Paul appeals to, see, he doesn't threaten his readers. He doesn't try to make them afraid. He doesn't try to say, you better straighten up and fly right or God's going to get you for that. He appeals to his Christian readers to understand who it is that they really are on the inside, who it is that they are by virtue of their relationship with Jesus, the new person that we are by virtue of our faith in Christ. And here again, he comes back to the same idea. Ephesians chapter 4, verse 22 says this, that you put off concerning the former conversation, the old man, which is corrupt according to the deceitful lusts. Now I have to explain that this word conversation that is used here, this King James translation was made in 1611. 400 years ago. And some words have a little different usage in modern language. And for us, we don't use the word conversation the way they did. When we say conversation, we mean when we talk with one another. But in the world of 1611, the word conversation meant the way you live in relation to one another. It meant your manner of life. And so Paul says that concerning your former manner of life, writing to Christians, writing to those that believe in Jesus, that you put off the old man. Well, who is the old man? Well, the old man, the old person is you, or let me put it this way, your conception of you before Jesus. That's a better way to say it. The old man is your conception of yourself before Jesus. And he says it's corrupt, according to deceitful lusts that deceive, desires that are deceptive. And the next verse tells us how to do that. And be renewed in the spirit of your mind. Does this remind you of anything we've read before? He just told us that back in Romans. In other words, change the way you think. Well, in what sense? In the sense of who you are. Because he's talking about your life and who you are. Now, he just got through saying in the previous verse, put off or put away from you your conception of who you used to be, and change and be renewed in the spirit of your mind. Now, who's the new you then? Well, the next verse tells us, and I want you to notice this. He said, put off the old man. Now he says, and that you put on the new man. Now, how do you put on the new man? Well, it's not like going to the closet and putting on a coat, but he said it's being renewed in the spirit of your mind. You put on the new man here in adopting a new way of thinking, specifically about who it is that I am. Just like in Galatians 2:20 said, he said, it's no longer, nevertheless I live, yet not I, Christ lives in me. That's a way of thinking about who I am. Now listen to this. The new you, who you are, which is, listen to this, which after God means like God. Made like God. The new you is like God. Wow. That's pretty powerful if you think about it. The new you on the inside doesn't need to turn over a new leaf or try to do better. It's like God on the inside. Now your flesh is another story, but the way we live in the flesh, Paul said, I live by faith, by depending on and relying on Jesus, who loved me and gave himself for me. And who I am on the inside is a reflection of him. Created in God in righteousness. Now he doesn't say created in God trying to be righteous. He said created in righteousness. That's who I am. Just like we sang in that song this morning. I'm a new creation. I'm a brand new man. Old things have passed away. More than a conqueror, that's who I am. It's about who we am. Who we be. What our state of... I'm getting my grammar all wrong, aren't I? What our state of being is. Who it is that we really are. Created in righteousness and in true holiness. Now he says true holiness because there is a kind of imitation holiness which is dependent on behavior for men to look at. But really, truly holy because... And the reason it is because you have received into yourself the one who really is truly holy. Now this is all about how you see yourself. And the idea is that how you see yourself will reflect and be reflected in your life if you really do believe, if you really do see yourself that way. Now just this last week, if you've been here for a while, you know this story, but I'm going to tell it anyway because it's a good illustration. April is a member of a garden club here in Alva. I don't know. Where's Phil? Is he back there? Phil knows. Anton, you know, which garden club is it? The Tulip Club, okay. And and I think it's in conjunction with the other garden clubs, they choose a yard every month to be the yard of the month. And I went with her just this last week to a house over on, I don't know what street it was. I didn't pay attention. I just drive the car. I don't know. We went to this house and chose the yard of the month. The ladies chose, but we put the sign in the yard, and I helped her take some pictures of this house. And but I remember several years ago, how many years has it been? Anton, do you know? It's been like 10 years now, something like that. Anyway, many moons ago, we came home from Walmart one day, and every day we go to Walmart. We go every day. Anyway, so we came back to Walmart one day, and there was that yard of the month sign in our yard. Now, as for me, I'm not big on gardening. I'm not big on yards. It's a chore as far as I'm concerned. I don't like mowing the yard. Get it done as quick as possible. I just have to admit, I'm not very conscientious about it. And, you know, if I don't mow very carefully and don't edge, you know, I really don't care. I just want to get the minimum done, and I don't want to be out there. I got other things I need to do, and I've got a kind of a bad attitude, as you can see, about yard work. But April is different. She she plants flowers, she gardens, and makes it all look very attractive, very beautiful. And